Greg and I here are picking up on some really cool open source work that you did, Greg, around Unmint. Maybe you just want to talk a little bit about what Unmint is, why you did it.
Yeah, and I think it would be great if you also went to unmint.dev just to have a little visual aid. But while Jake's pulling that up, as an early stage startup, when we at Spec Story released our first set of extensions, we knew that one of the things that was going to make or break it was, the not just the quality, but the presentation of our documentation, because it's a developer tool. And so naturally, we were time strapped, we're looking for options, and we settled on Mintlify to host our product docs because they had great presentation. And all well and good. It was awesome. Team grew, add more people, docs still were great. But as we were thinking about some other products, I was digging into a host of different SaaS offerings that we had been using, Unmint being one of them. And one of the things that I realized was, for what we needed, being able to basically replicate what what Mintlify provided,
Yep.
with, I'll call it vibe coding, but it was a little bit more engineered than that. Was actually quite easy because we didn't really need a lot of the functionality that Unmint provided. It was more around the styling and the presentation of our docs. And so I found this package called Fuma Docs, which is a great engine, and customized a set of templates on top. And so the motivation was for us to reduce a SaaS dependency, have control over everything related to the presentation of our docs. And because we, are already a Vercel customer, we use Vercel, we could
Yep.
easily host them because we had a deployment environment, and ultimately they're just statically rendered, HTML files at the end of the day. And so that's what we did. And I built this, it's an npm package, it's open source on GitHub. Um, yeah, thing called Unmint, and now we're using it, and we know a few other sort of friends of Spec Story are using it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. The
yeah,
Variata folks are using it too.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So we're going to use this as our example, right? Because part of what we're doing with the series is just talking about product planning, product decision making, taking some of our lessons learned from however many decades of product leadership experience we've had, and trying to just synthesize it down. And so, one of the tools that I've used in the past, and I know you're familiar with too, is Lean Canvas. This is from a book called Running Lean by Ash Moria. So if you haven't read this, um, it's a really good book. I'd kind of recommend checking it out. What it does is sort of distills down the concepts of Eric Ries's Lean Startup into a very practical step-by-step workbook type guide for how you would do new product planning. And I've used Lean Canvas in a bunch of places. One specifically was at DigitalOcean, as I was helping us roll out new products there in the managed services space. We kind of knew what we were doing in one sense. I mean, we had a pretty small team um, going to work on our app platform, and we were pretty well aligned, but it was sort of internally aligned. Like, we just talked a lot about what are we building and how are we building it. And Lean Canvas was a chance to take an outside in view and think a little bit more about why we were building it, how we would identify the initial customer segment, the problems we would solve for them at first. It was just a good focusing exercise. And in general, it's sort of this one of a group of things where you do a strategy on a page, sort of forces you into clarity to have to write something down on one page instead of in a full document. So that's the background behind Lean Canvas. And as an exercise, if you're up for it, Craig, I was going to just sort of interview you as if Unmint were a product, not just an open source tool, and we can talk about, from an outside in perspective, the customer segments we want to focus on, the problem you were trying to solve for them, the unique value proposition. If that sounds good.
I mean, Jake, I knew you were going to go this direction. That's why I already have the Lean Canvas, that HTML up. And yeah, it sounds great because I think Once we learned that like more people we knew were using it, it made sense to say, how can we make this better? Because this was sort of just like a fly by night, very harried, like I want to get this into the world and maybe some people will find it. And it turns out like some people have. There hasn't been any marketing of it, but I think if we continually improve it, I think more people who are in similar situation to us might be able to get some value out of it. And um, it's a great demonstrative example about how to apply these thinking principles. So yeah, let's do it.
I think that's true. Let's do it. We'll jump in with the beginning, step one, right? So there are a lot of different ways that you can run through the canvas, but I kind of like this ordering. We start with customer segments and then their problems, and so we can just riff. I mean, we've got Stoa here. It's transcribing this whole meeting, so we'll be able to use that transcription to actually update the document. So I'm not going to try and type in real time, but maybe just talk a little bit about the customer segments that you think could benefit from Unmint, and if especially if early adopters come to mind, like who the tip of the spear would be, that'd be good to think through.
Yeah, I mean, sort of obviously, I think the main customer segment for this open source repo that is sort of a, not all batteries included version of a hosted platform would be a small team or startup that's bringing a product to market or to life and needs a solution for their docs. Someone who is likely fairly well versed already with like the open source ecosystem and kind of is comfortable like hosting their own apps. If I had to put like a name to that kind of segment, I would say like, maybe like YC founders or Techstar founders
Yeah.
or something sort of similar. Especially bootstrap companies that just don't want to pay a lot or have the luxury to pay a lot for hosted doc platforms,
Yep.
right? But still want something that looks sort of professional and wouldn't mind their customers seeing. That I think is probably the primary segment for like a product like this.
What do you think about solopreneurs? Like if you're off using agentic coding, vibe coding, and you're just doing your own, like I'm building SaaS from scratch myself.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Solopreneurs too. I think they fit the bootstrapping category.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to explicitly name them is good. I agree. Yeah.
Yep, I like that. And then maybe just outside the box a little bit, like who would be maybe a non-obvious secondary segment that could benefit from this?
That's a good question. I mean, so it certainly targets product documentation, like, that's
Yep.
kind of the point. You could technically host any sort of technical docs with it. Doesn't mean you have to be building, like, a product in the way that we think of it, like a SaaS company or a SaaS business or an app or whatnot. Um I think maybe a secondary segment could just be because it's sort of lower, like, risk in some ways is, like, an internal team that wants to have
Mm,
nice looking docs for something that's not like a product, but it's, like, they wanna have a doc site and maybe for whatever reason, they don't wanna use, like, a Confluence or Notion. They want something a little bit more, um, tailored, right, for something internal to the, company, maybe like an internal tools team. I can think of as maybe being a segment, even though that's not really what this was designed in mind for. Um, and so that might be at a larger company, right?
yep.
Uh,
I like that thought. That's like you can imagine your CRM team or any internal tools team just trying to document tools for the rest of the org. Cool. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens now with step one. We'll use Stoa to and we'll use the agent in Stoa to go back, pull a little bit from our transcript and create this canvas for us. One of the things I did, so you see my lean canvas.html, but I
mhm.
also created this plugin in Stoa so that any file that's a .canvas.md file will get rendered as a lean canvas. So like if I pop into test canvas, switch to raw mode, you can see it's just a markdown file with the
Yeah.
yeah, the 9 steps, right? And so as soon as you click rendered though, it shows it in the view of the lean canvas.
Yep. So I'm looking at that, and I had already been looking at lean canvas.html. So yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me copy this test canvas.md. into let's see, copy the contents of that into a new canvas just for unmint canvas. Okay, so now we've got a copy of the unmint canvas or the test canvas for the unmint canvas, but we'll update the step one. So let's ask the agent here, for unmint canvas, look back at our transcript and write some good
Let's be specific
ideas.
and say voice transcript.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah, sometimes it likes to look at Claude transcripts. Back at our voice transcript and write some good ideas into step one based on what we talked about. Based on what we talked about. Yeah, we got something. It went through and listed out step one. And so you can scroll through. It's got the bootstrap startups and early stage teams, YC Techstar style, solopreneurs, and then it calls out our secondary around internal tools teams.
Did a good job.
Did a good job. I mean, I would argue we did a good job as we were talking through it, and then it grabbed out
Well, it's
our
nice to see that Stoa and our agent can make us go from conversation to code
yes.
without us, having to manually struggle bust through writing this down. That's
Oh my
awesome.
gosh, remember those days when we'd have like a shared whatever presentation up and you would just be sitting there typing while somebody else is talking. It's so distracting.
Yeah, exactly. And we can still do that, of course, but this is much
Yeah,
more fun.
yeah.
We could
Um,
certainly just edit this file, but this is much more fun.
it is. It is.
And try and cover a lot of them at once in your next set of questions.
Yeah, I like that. So maybe two, three, and four. Problem, unique value proposition, and solution. So get that going in our head, and we'll just go through them one by one, right? Because we went into the customer segment. We're going to focus in on these bootstrap startups and early stage teams, and so maybe we could riff a little bit on the problems that these teams face, right? So, what are some of the biggest pain points around documentation that these teams face?
Well, I mean, it's kinda like the same problem that we faced. We knew we needed docs because we needed to communicate more than might just be obvious in using the product directly, right? A lot of technical products have a lot of bells and whistles. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things you can do with them, a lot of configuration, and so being able to lay that out in a way that someone, could maybe understand the capabilities of a product before making an investment in downloading it, installing it, whatnot, is particularly important, especially for developers or technical folks. They generally like to be able to consult docs and understand what they're getting into before being either forced to try something or deciding to try something. So that's sort of one. Um,
Oh, I
I
know
think
one. Oh, I didn't mean to
now.
interrupt you, but it's right up your alley. So, you know, I mean, all of us now use agents to write these docs a lot more than we ever used to, right? And I think that's probably had some influence on this.
Yeah, I was also thinking that now there's like a new problem for docs, which is if you're, let's say you have a SaaS business or something, um, there's a lot of product decision making that's happening now in developer consoles when they're using agentic harnesses where they literally are doing research to say, hey, I need an auth provider, or hey, I need a, payment processor, right? And
Yep.
if your docs aren't out there, and specifically if they don't have like llms.txt associated with them, you're less likely to kind of turn up in the search results that
Yep.
your cloud code or your codex or similar will provide. And so beyond just human consumption, from a vendor selection point of view, it's really important to have, good SEO sort of optimized docs out there in the world that specifically agents can read. And then as a sort of corollary to that, because, depending on what the product was, let's say you're like an API business, right? Humans are likely not going to be the ones now reading like, how does your API work, right?
Yep.
They're going to be pointing an agent at your docs and saying, summarize, what endpoint I have to call and what the parameters of this endpoint are, right? So that I can integrate this product or app into my app. And so that's like another problem to solve with technical docs is
Yep.
instructing LLMs on how to not just help you select the right thing to use, but like once you've made that choice, like actually using it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So the impact that AI coding tools and agents have on the consumption of these docs is a pain point for our customers who are writing these docs. And then also, I would say the customers that we're focused on here with Unmint will be writing their docs sort of at the same time they're building their software, and they will probably use agents to write them. And this idea that they're gonna like go someplace separate to author those docs as opposed to just writing them right there in the code base or side by side with the code base. I think that's maybe another problem to be solved. And
Yeah.
Unmint does that nicely.
Yeah, it does. Other tools do too, but Unmint is specifically local first because you gotta host it. But yeah, the co-location of docs and code is kind of like a new but very important problem um, that it tackles. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'll just throw one more out there because we talked about it a few times. Cost. There's a pain point around cost, spending hundreds of dollars for hosted documentation.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. With a little bit of elbow grease, a few turns of an agentic harness, you can kind of get something up and running very easily if you're willing to bear the small cost of publishing them somewhere on your own infrastructure.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's good. I think that tackles problems there. Maybe we'll shift over to unique value proposition, right? The idea here, when we pop back to the lean canvas, right? A single, clear, compelling message that states why you are different and worth paying attention to. So it's almost like the headline of a product landing page when we're going to build one. So maybe we could just brainstorm a little bit what that core UVP is for Unmint.
Yeah, well, so Unmin itself already has a product landing page, and I
Mhm.
think what I thought or the way I sort of positioned it was, beautiful product documentation in 2026 like
Yep.
should be accessible and free effectively, right? Like
Yes.
that doesn't mean that, if you provide a hosting platform or service that should be free, but like just the raw material to be able to take text and turn it into, a documentation site at this point should be uh, freely available.
Yep.
So, and I think that is compared to other sort of open source projects out there, some of which were actually, our dependencies in Unmint, is its unique value proposition because it is built on a couple other great sort of documentation engines, but the value proposition in addition to being sort of free and accessible is that it sort of works out of the box. Like you don't have to do very much to get it up and running. You do an npm install, and then when you run it, it walks you through kind of a very short questionnaire in terms of how to
Yep.
configure your repo, and you basically have a live running doc site, within 5 minutes or less. So
Got it.
uh, cost, accessibility, and like onboarding slash ease of use, I think are its particular UVPs.
Sort of batteries included on that last one.
Batteries included. Yeah, yeah. There are some like custom. I think I called them like widgets or sort of templates for creating different types of docs experience, like also included in there. So if you wanted to create like an accordion or a different component, like a lot of those things are already built in. But of course, you can like add new ones.
Yep. That's great. And then in our test to run through a few of these at once before processing, let's hit step 4, the solution, which we've already got kind of spelled out. So maybe you can just sort of reiterate what the solution is and how we address these pains for these customer segments.
Yeah, so like the solution is kind of we've already kind of talked about it in various ways here, but it's like um a, a templatized, easy to install from npm sort of lightweight template that packages not only a core docs engine, but a sort of opinionated design perspective on how docs should look and operate, right?
Yep.
Um, that's free and open source.
Yeah, and it's got some core features, right? It's got, looking at the Unmin page, it's got full text search in there. It supports dark mode out of the box. You can retheme it and restyle it as you want. You can create
You
your
can
own
download
MDX
text
components.
free. You can, and you also get the sort of agent ready version of your docs too. You don't have to worry about configuring that.
Yeah, yeah, and then it mentions SEO optimized, and I was just talking to Nate this morning, right? We were getting the withstoa.com website sort of SEO optimized, and he said the doc section was kind of the easiest. It was already so far along from using Unmint.
Sweet. Let's do it. Hit that agent.
Let's hit the agent. All right. Based on the rest of our conversation and the meeting transcript, update steps 2, 3, and 4 in the Unmint canvas. All right. And then UVP, beautiful professional product doc, should be free in 2026. Unmint makes that true. It's pretty good.
Cool. You want to tackle the last couple steps here?
I was thinking maybe we just stick the agent on it. It's got enough context from our conversation. I bet it could make some reasonable proposals about the next steps.
Yeah, okay, so that would be kinda looking at this as it there's some old data in here, so unfair advantage channels and key metrics we haven't yet updated, so you wanna and I don't think for this particular example, we have to worry about cost structure or revenue streams because it
Yeah, so let's tell it that.
that's a no
So
op.
input, blank out cost structure and revenue streams because this is open source. And make a pass at drafting step 5, 8, and 9 based on everything we've done so far. Great. Yep, it cleared out revenue streams and cost structure.
Yep, NA open source, and it already has key metrics and oh, I don't know about unfair advantage. Did we get that one? Oh. Oh, yeah, no, it just
Yeah, now
updated.
it's updated, right? Built and dog fooded by Spec Story in production.
Every improvement is battle tested.
It's true. I just
First
submitted first poll this morning.
That's key metrics. Yeah, GitHub stars. I mean, npm weekly downloads, number of public site. I like the number of public docs sites deployed because
I do.
that's a real outcome metric. It's like, are
Yeah.
people actually using it versus just forking it or saying, "Oh, this looks interesting." Um, and then yeah, inbound contributions of which you contributed one. That's
That's
good.
right. Yeah, now we get the rest of the world contributing, and this thing will have legs of its own.
Cool.
Well, good. Yeah, I mean, I think this was the goal here was this exercise just to give a flavor of what it would feel like in a live Stoa space to use the lean canvas and to be able to brainstorm in a more fluid way, and then have the decisions that we come to get captured for us, really leaning on the agent to do some of that grunt work actually.
Yeah, and being able to iterate super quickly and understanding a little bit about, selfishly, but sort of exuberantly, like what is possible within this multiplayer room that Stoa provides, right? The fact that we kind of showed this, but we didn't really get into the technical details that you can have these customized extensions that can, for example, like render like a markdown file any way you want, right? Because we weren't actually updating HTML here. We're updating the markdown file that's
Yeah,
behind this sort of rendered view. And so hopefully some of that is great exposure and a little bit of us like learning through osmosis of watching us use this.
I think that's right, and we can do a little tips and tricks session on exactly how I created that lean canvas plugin. I think other people might find it useful too.
Yeah, that seems like a great follow on.
Nice.
Thanks, Jake. This is fun.
Yeah, always fun. All right. Catch you soon, Greg.